where the balance should be struck between the two. And second, to determine the mechanisms to deal with such information requests. Section 81J RTI Act recognizes this conflict by exempting purely personal information, which says that disclosure may be refused if the request person pertains to a personal information, the disclosure of which has no relationship to any public activity or interest, or which would cause unwarranted invasion of the privacy of the individual. Thus, personal information, including tax returns, medical records, your marriage information relating to marriage, adoption, etc., cannot be disclosed in this provision. But if the applicant can show sufficient public interest in disclosure, the bar preventing disclosure is lifted, and after duly notifying the individual whose records are sought, and after considering his views, the authority can disclose it. But the restriction on the right of private individuals and public servants is slightly different, because a public servant is expected to act for the public good in the discharge of his duty and is accountable for them, an issue which I would like to deal with it little later. All this prompts the question as to what privacy really is. According to Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis, this was a very famous essay written in 1920. Louis Brandeis thereafter became the judge of the US Supreme Court, and they defined the privacy is the right to let alone. So it's a very simplistic definition, right to let alone. But it doesn't clarify what aspects of personal life should be left alone. For example, should it include privacy of space, of behavior, of decisions, or of information? A better, more meaningful explanation of the boundaries of private space comes from a famous scholar, Charles Frick, and he says, to respect, he of course expresses it in a very beautiful language, to respect, love, trust, feel affection for others, and to regard ourselves as the objects of love, trust, and affection is at the heart of our notion of ourselves as persons among persons, and privacy is the necessary atmosphere for these attitudes and action as oxygen is for combustion. In a broad sense, privacy is essential for preventing coercive interference with decision making affecting intimate and personal affairs. For example, decisions surrounding abortion, lifestyle choices, the right to choose one's spouse, the right to follow one's own sexual orientation, and the right to rear children according to your religious convictions, and very recently, right to choose what to eat and what not to eat. I mean, this ominous bans on what the person should eat and what not to eat is going to create a great divide in this country, and apart from affecting the personal rights of an individual. In a broad sense, ladies and gentlemen, privacy is essential for preventing coercive interference by the government. And finally, there is one more very important aspect of the privacy, and that is informational privacy, dealing with individuals' ability to control the publication or distribution of information relating to themselves. Now, with programs like UID, NatGrid, CCTLs, RS5B, DNA, profiling, reproductive rights of women, privileged communications, and brain mapping and whatnot, there is an increased collection of citizens' information which ranges from data related to health, travel, taxes, religion, education, financial status, employment, living condition, welfare status, guardianship status, marriage status, crime record, and so on. Now, the Supreme Court has recognized the right to privacy as a fundamental right. Now, there are two famous decisions of the court. The first was in Kharak Singh versus State of UP, where the court really did not recognize the right to privacy as a fundamental right. But this was really developed in Gobind versus State of MP, in R. Rajgopal versus State of TN, District Registrar versus Canara Bank, And more importantly, as an aside, I will tell you, in the US Supreme Court has held that the right to privacy is available only to an individual. It is not available to a corporation or a company. To see the words of section 81J, it also indicate that the right to personal information is available to a person, with individual, not to a person, legal person like company, etc. And another aside which I must bring it to your notice. See, Supreme Court and High Courts have spent decades fine-tuning the right to privacy and reading it into constitutional rights. The government now has threatened to undermine these rights by arguing before the Supreme Court that the citizens of India do not have a right to privacy. This is unfortunately the stand taken by the Attorney General before the Supreme Court in the challenge to UID. And it means that this 125 crores population don't have a right to privacy. In fact, it is high time that the government should clarify its position and to enact a law relating to privacy, explaining its contours and its scope, because there was a committee appointed to frame law on privacy, and that committee made the report in 2012, and till today no law has been passed on privacy. Now there is in that report it is said that the privacy would be always subject to the citizen's right to information, subject to the exceptions laid out in section 81G. Now, none of the Supreme Courts have really touched the tension between the right to privacy and right to information. But I would like to quote one very important observation of Lord Denning in his book, What Next in Law, and how beautifully he puts it, the principle, this tension between the right to privacy and the right to information. He says, English law should recognize a right to privacy. Any infringement of it should give a cause of action for damages or an injunction as the case may require. It should also recognize a right of confidence for all correspondence and communications which expressly or impliedly are given in confidence. None of these rights is absolute. Each is subject to exceptions which are to be followed whenever the public interest in openness outweighs the public interest in privacy or confidentiality. In every instance, it is a balancing exercise for the courts. As each case is decided, it will form a precedent for others, so a body of case law will be established. In Subhash Chandra Agarwal's case, the information seeker wanted to know the information as to whether the judges of the High Court and the judges of the Supreme Court have furnished their assets declaration to the Chief Justice of India or the Chief Justice of the various courts, as was decided in the Chief Justice's conference. Now the Chief Justice pleaded that he is not covered by the right to privacy. The court also pleaded that this cannot be permitted in view of right to privacy. Now the court said that merely informing whether a declaration was made or not doesn't affect one's right to privacy. Perhaps the assets need not be declared or need not be disclosed to the information seeker, because unless it is warranted by the statute. Now this matter was Supreme Court appealed to itself against the decision of the Delhi High Court, and the appeal is pending in the Supreme Court for the last 5 years, and this question is not yet decided by the court. The second aspect of the matter is that with the Lokpal Act, now the information regarding the assets of the public officials will be made public, and I really welcome that provision, and it should be really on the website. In fact, the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court and 2 other High Courts judges put their information regarding their own assets, their assets of their spouse, minor children, everything was put on the website of the court. So the other question which arises is there a difference when you seek information about the personal details of a public servant and when you seek information about personal details of a private individual. There is no substantive difference between the privacy right of a private individual and the right of a government servant. But there is an added factor that a government servant acts for the public good in discharge of his duties. When personal information about public servant is sought, a distinction must be made between the personal data inherent to this position and which are not. Some data might be relevant to his position, and therefore it may not affect his private life. It would be concerning his position. So such data should be released without any objection on the ground of privacy. But there might be some information like his medical record or medical record of his family that might be protected. But if it is, for example, the allegation is that the public official has given false information in order to get the reimbursement amount from the government, surely this would be a case where the privacy right would be overridden by the public interest and the requirement for openness, and the such information should be released. But the balancing task, though easy in theory, is quite difficult. So the trade-off between these aspects require answering many questions. For instance, does the disclosure pertain to duties and tasks assigned to the public servant? Does it relate to the individual's private details unconnected with his professional position? These questions are difficult, and the Information Commissions will have to carefully examine these issues and release the information after giving notice to the concerned individual. According to us, I mean, when we decided Subhash Agarwal's case, that the degree of protection accorded to a public official under section 81J on the ground of privacy is much lower than a protection granted to an individual. And it is very important that this distinction should be borne in mind when the authorities deal with the request for information. So the balance between information and privacy is a fine one, and not as black and white as would like to be. Many countries besides ours are grappling to reconcile the tensions between the two. What we in India must always remember is that both privacy and information are as fundamental as rights can get in a democratic system of government, and this cannot be compromised at under any circumstances. So both the rights are equally important, and it is really the task for the Information Commissions to strike a balance between these two rights. Thank you.